Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Sunday, June 17th, 2018. Sunday evening. I hope everyone out there, all the fathers, had a great day within the United States and throughout the world. Just kicking back, mellowed out along the New River. And it's beautiful night for June. It's not muggy. It's very mild. And I'm very pleased about it. That's what time you have to hit the beach, hit the water, then you take a shower. That's totally refreshing. And very comfortable. So you should do that more often during the hot times if you're living in South Florida or anywhere else that has high temperatures. So just watching some of that World Cup football or soccer, they call it in the United States. Entertaining as usual. I just love when everyone has their little jerseys on from what country they're from and going up in arms. And I had a friend of mine, and I asked her, "Do you think You think Switzerland will outplay Brazil today?" And she never responded. She's from Brazil, but good people. And many others too. I have a lot of my colleagues out there are from that country as well. And they're big fans of the games, so it was entertaining, and it was a good battle. Looks like, don't be surprised if the FIFA commissioners will be looking at how the referee managed the game. Pretty more controversies, a lot of holding and scratching and all that good stuff. It's like almost like water polo, but on grass. Yeah. So what else is happening? I don't know. Hell, we'll just kick it off right. I just got some things I want to go on my mind right now. And, boom. Some of the stuff just came out. Like, this time I hit lunch or so forth. I go to a place. I have my phone. I always, see what's going on in the news. And, it's interesting about the whole thing that happened in Trenton. And they talk about gun violence and so forth. But looks like what we got from Fox News is maybe gang related, so it's like an isolated incident, which is a real shame. And of course, New Jersey has one of the most toughest illegal gun laws in the union. But you know what? It didn't make the Trenton Art Museum safe. And one thing for sure, it's supposed to unite people, and they think it was ruined because of the incident. I always say this, folks: do not live in fear. Counter it. Because if not, those bastards will win. And I'll tell you that for a fact. Keep on going to these events. Enjoy life while you can. But always remain vigilant at the same time. And whatever you do, please don't go running up in arms when there's a big shootout. You better just duck. Because there's times some of the cops were shooting at the assailants. People are running right by them and they get hurt or injured. I'm like, what are you doing? You can't go around a panic spree. That's not how you do things. I'm not being an expert either, but hit the deck, cover your families. Then you're probably better off. It's just stuff like that. You got to think safety as well. But it's a real shame what happened in Trenton. But of course, anything. If it wasn't firearms, it wouldn't be glamorous on national news because we all know how the lamestream media is. FEAR, 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 fear. But like I said before, whatever you do, just stay vigilant, my friends. Don't live in panic. We've been living in a dangerous world since the beginning of time. 5 millenniums at the least. So this came out yesterday, and I found, and it was on the Freedom Outpost, but originally came from the Free Thought Project. Very intriguing indeed, and it's a reference to Stoneman Douglas High School. Yes, Parkland strong. Stoneman Douglas strong. Explain this to me. This is by John Vibes. Guard who ignored Parkland shooter was caught sexually harassing victim year before. Never fired. Now, like I said, it's here, a guard who chose to save himself during the Parkland shooting had been caught harassing female students and never should have been allowed at the school. John Vibes. Spread the love, right? Absolutely. Share all this information. As we report extensively in the aftermath of the Parkland school shooting in February, law enforcement failed on multiple levels that day, fumbling numerous opportunities to intervene in the attack. Now, months later, it has been revealed that the first line of defense in the shooting, a guard for the school named Andrew Medina, was unfit for his position and should not have been trusted with the lives of children. Medina has been criticized for not taking proper action during the attack, and many critics says that if he did take action, he could have saved many lives. This week, new details have emerged about Medina's past at the school, which gives an ugly glimpse into his character. According to the family of Meadow Pollock, a young girl who died in the shooting, 39-year-old Andrew Medina harassed a number of girls at the school, including Meadow. Medina was reported on 2 separate occasions, but no action was ever taken against him, despite the seriousness of the allegation and the fact that there are multiple reports. According to records obtained by the Sun Sentinel, Medina propositioned one student and made a lewd comment to another in February 2017, a year before the attack. Both students became so uncomfortable with Mr. Medina's comments and actions, they sought out different routes to their classes in an attempt to avoid him, the report said. One girl who spoke with CBS 4 anonymously said that she experienced harassment from Medina while at school. One time he said to me that his kids were gone for the weekend and that he wants me to come over and he wants to buy drinks for me, but I can't tell anyone, the girl said, adding that she doesn't have a voice anymore, so I don't need to be that voice of her because this man should not be able to work on a school campus, period. Medina does, in fact, still work for the school system. The Public Information Office of Broward County Public Schools sent CBS 4 a statement regarding Medina, which read, in part, the employee was investigated for alleged inappropriate comments to students. The final determination after the review process was to uphold the final finding of probable cause for inappropriate conduct from the PSC, which is Professional Standards Committee. However, the discipline was finalized at a 3-day suspension. There was no direct evidence to distinguish between the conflicting statements provided by the students and the employee, and there were no previous records of discipline for the employee. Andrew Medina continues to be reassigned away from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School to a non-school work location until further notice. However, according to the investigation that followed that reports against Medina's security camera footage, they confirmed aspects of one of the girls' stories, and Medina admitted to be, quote, being a little friendly, unquote, when interviewed about the harassment. So there is actual evidence against him. It is just that his word was chosen over the student's word, which is a standard operating procedure in public schools. So, to the students, you're just numbers to them. Okay? Absolutely numbers. So you should be going after the school system than March for Our Lives, Moms Demands Action, and Enough's Enough should be going after the school system, including Me Too. You should get Me Too going after the school system, not other areas of witch hunting. Meadows' family is shocked that he still has a job. The school board still elects to reassign them. Is mind-boggling, upsetting that no one in the county had been held accountable for what happened. No one person has lost their job. Meadows' father, Andrew Pollock, said, "They still won't fire the guy. There is incompetence everywhere in the Broward schools." He added, "And what's so funny? You still get they still got all this damn money, $100 million, $800 million bond. Yeah, you got the middle finger for the parents of the Broward County school system." Sadly, a lack of accountability seems to be a common problem in both law enforcement and the school system, which allows for incompetent people to be responsible for life and death decisions. In an interview taken after the shooting that was made public last week, Medina said that he knew the shooter was a potential problem. "We had a meeting about him last year, and we said if there's gonna be anybody who's gonna come to the school and shoot the school up, it's gonna be that kid," Medina said. Yet, when the shooting began, Medina did not attempt to intervene or even call backup. Instead, he saved himself and warned a fellow co-worker, "If someone of a more qualified character was filling that role, it is highly possible that many lives could have been saved on that day. Absolutely. This is why it really bugs me when you got Pamela Visgino boy, Sheriff, not my sheriff, Scott Israel, wants to blame the gun owners and the National Rifle Association. So explain to me why. Why do you want to hire weak and incompetent individuals? Why? And even to the Broward school system. Why? Why do you want to still, what's his name, Renzi? Superintendent Renzi went in that BBT, that circus speaking at CNN, Comical News Network, want to blame the NRA because you know why? Because you guys don't have the balls and courage of looking in the mirror. That is right. I am not afraid to say this to your faces either because I don't give a damn. One thing I'm tired of, a bunch of pencil-neck witch-hunting wussies like yourselves don't have the courage to take responsibility for your actions, including some of your sidekicks you hire, and you want me to be condemned, to have property, including firearms, to defend myself and loved ones, because I do give a damn about my community, but you want to condemn me? That tells you one thing, you guys are weak and pathetic. You are less patriotic than Benedict Arnold, and I'll guarantee you that. And you know, do yourselves a favor. Get the hell out of my country. Leave the state of Florida and go to some little Twilight Zone bizarro world where you clowns belong. Because as far as I'm concerned, the parents are sick and tired of all the BS that's been going on. And I'm going to tell you one thing too, my friends. The March for Our Lives are nothing more than a cruel hoax. They're in the same category as the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Anti-Defamation League. And just to let you folks know, I am not being anti-Semitic when I criticize the ADL. Enough of that. I'll be digressing the daylights out of this subject. But John Vibes, thank you for that report, for sharing it with us. And this came interesting here. It's in reference to the Florida Atlantic University professor, Dr. Marshall De La Rosa. And this actually came out on the 12th. And unfortunately, I should have known about this a little bit earlier. But it's from AmericanFreePress.net. And this one is mainly about him. It says activists target another FAU scholar. At Florida Atlantic University, the main one is in Boca Raton, Florida. And I will continue on here. And it says here, Florida Atlantic University professor Dr. Marshall De La Rosa is being harassed over his politically incorrect Southern scholarship and prison outreach efforts as part of the left's perpetual attacks on the Koch brothers. By S.T. Patrick. Since March, Dr. Marshall De La Rosa has been under fire from journalists and activists across Florida nationwide. A bunch of these, I've read some of these articles. One gentleman, which I'm not going to say all articles are bad, but I am real critical of Mr. Jerry Antonelli's article, which he's some glam boy. I guess it's some glam boy journalist from Philadelphia. You're going to bring your cockroach mentality about Southern heritage down here, said we're wrong, evil, and wicked. Yo, you better start reading your history books and explain to me. Go down to the Lincoln Memorial and look at his bench, and between the end of the bench from both where we have both his hands and arms at, there's an area called their feces. If you know what feces are, they actually represent dominance and control, like battle axe on each side of his arms. And it represents dominance and control as a form of fascism. And one thing for sure, those feces were banned after Mussolini's death, because he had it on the Italian flag. It means fascism, dominance, and control. So, all you folks out there that want to mock this man, do your homework before talking ill about this person. But you know what? I jumped the gun, but I'm going to go around here and continue. The charge against De Rosa, a professor for Florida Atlantic University for 28 years, ranged from inconvenient political Koch funded to a serious and potentially career-threatening white supremacist. The criticism of De Rosa has been a niche story until the left-leaning magazine The Nation published a headpiece on March 21st, how Charlie Koch is helping neo-Confederates teach college students. Since then, De Rosa has been a target of protests and harassment from across the FAU campus and beyond. Student activists primarily from the FAU Democratic Socialist and FAU student power groups have made DeRosa classes a FAU difficult endeavors. How nice. I want these little minions going to tell me how to think and wipe my rear end, right? And all the FAU students, going to tell other FAU students how to think, how to wipe your rear ends, and saying, if you're not with us, you're against us. With their Vladimir Lenin rhetoric, which even George W. Bush used that for the war on terror. Some students have even gone so far as to pass accusatory flyers inside DeRosa's classroom. The attacks on DeRosa Center on his ties to what critics are calling white nationalist and neo-Confederate groups, such as the League of the South Institute, LSI, which, according to his own advertisement, is an educational arm of the Mary Noel Kershaw Foundation. And there's a podcast on here as well by Midnight Riders News. And I'll continue on here. Over an hour long, but it's really, so far what I listened to is really good, but I'm going to proceed. In an email exchange with his writer, DeRosa described the end of his tenure with the LSI. My disengagement from the League of the South was a gradual process, DeRosa wrote. I don't have a specific date, but I believe it began in the late 1990s. As an academic, I was able to and willing to give presentations about my scholarship. Professor Forrest McDonald, the world-renowned historian at the University of Alabama, invited me to the first organizational meeting at the University of Alabama. The purpose was to provide an academic and research forum for scholars. It did not and was not intended to be engaged in politics. DeRosa is currently associated with the Abbeville Institute, an organization formed to critically explore what is true and valuable in the Southern tradition. Abbeville is named after the birthplace of former Senator and Vice President John C. Calhoun of South Carolina. What's confusing are the duplicitous motives of the protesters, as well as organizations such as Camp Reform and Media Mass for America. A majority of headlines and flyers use the name Coke more prominently than they use DeRosa. Therefore, it can be assumed that DeRosa is just a target du jour for the left's perpetual attacks on Charles and David Koch. The oil billionaire is known for donating to Republican political processes. One of the causes of Charles Koch Foundation education initiatives allows FAU to fund the civics classes DeRosa teaches at the South Bay Correctional Facility, a private prison operated by GEO Group, Inc. And that area there, I have to say, if you read Article 7, Section 10 of the Florida Constitution, public-private enterprises are considered illegal. I'll be very frank on that. But one thing I have to say is I met Marshall DeRosa and seen him speak like 3 times. And one time was on the Bill of Rights Day, I believe it was 2008, at the West Palm Beach Convention Center. And I got one of his books. It was, I forgot the name of that book. Shoot. But it's very interesting about how to reestablish American democracy, the lessons of the Confederate Constitution. And it's very interesting because he was very keen. He wasn't a racist, what some of these people claim. Some of these people claim in some of these articles. I read a couple of them. I'm not impressed because they never have really done their homework on this man. I've taken the initiative to hear his side, hear his views, and bought that book and the Constitution of the Confederate States of America. And it's really, and historically speaking, it's very good. And don't get me wrong, government has their rough edges. All right, and even. Jefferson did talk about the slave thing and all that on his farewell address. However, he did state that the United States of America was never the enemy. They just had their differences, and they wanted to do fair trade and have a relationship. All right. So how is that the Confederate States of America was considered bad people because they separated from Mississippi, they separated from the Union? Well, the 13 colonies seceded from Great Britain, July 4, 1776. So, what's the difference, right? So, the whole thing is you got to always see things in a broader picture. And I seen him spoke there. I seen him spoke at a Ron Paul rally south of FAU. Actually, his son got him to Ron Paul. And plus, he spoke somewhere out in western Palm Beach County. He was going to run for the Senate under the Constitution Party. And I gotta be very frank. The man is no dummy. He's not some Nazi sympathizer or racist or anything like that. It's just he's trying to bring those views into light to make people decide for themselves. Because one thing for sure, my friends, the victors write the history books, and you got all these propaganda machines out there trying to say they're wrong, they're right. It was the right thing to do to go to war. Lincoln was supposed to free the slaves, and you know what, man? It's like, how did the Congress actually declare war on the Confederacy of America? No, they didn't. It was an illegal war, period. Do your homework, okay? And this is why, and like I said before, study the past is today's greatest teacher along the way. And I sort of recommend you check those two of those books out. You'd be amazed what he has, and you can go further too on your own research. That's one thing I always tell folks. Always verify a lot of stuff that comes out there, because how accurate is it? We never know. But Professor DeRosa does a real good job. He never tried to nitpick any particular group. And even the interview he did with Midnight Riders, which is on this website, what I got so far is very intelligent. So it was an honor to actually meet this man and see him speak in person, and shook his hand. He said, "Thank you for coming out." At least because people have to take the initiative on listening and have his views, and if people should actually have an honorable discussion with this person instead of crucifying him. And another thing he talks about, the Southern Poverty Law Center, money racket organization. Yeah, that's what they want. They want racism. They want the racial division. It makes them money. Okay, they're opportunistic vampires, just like the Anti-Defamation League. And I say that in good faith, based on their actions. So I'm going to put those footnotes in here on my Spreaker page and so forth, and you can just check out the show. So for the podcast is really good, and that is it on that. I don't want to go around and just go for the whole song and dance. So next one here, my friends, came from antiwar.com. It came out yesterday. Why should we be alarmed that Israeli forces and U.S. police are trained together? This is by Domenica Ghanem. Razan al-Dajjal is the latest victim in Israel's onslaught of Palestinians to go viral. The 21-year-old nurse was shot dead by a sniper. Her only weapon, a wad of medical gauze. She'd been treating protesters who had been rallying for their rights to return to homes they were expelled from as refugees. Unfortunately, the death of another unarmed civilian is hardly even news to Palestinians. May 14th, today, the United States moved its embassy to Jerusalem. Its symbolic support of recognizing the city as Israel's capital was also the bloodiest day in the recent wave of demonstrations. In just one day, at least 50 Palestinians were killed and 2,400 more injured by the Israeli military. Other accounts put those figures even higher. This isn't an anomaly in this latest wave of demonstrations. Israeli forces have killed dozens of unarmed protesters and wounded thousands more, and they're not apologizing. The violence has additionally troubling implications for the United States, and not just for its foreign policy, but at home. That's because U.S. police forces actually train extensively with the Israeli military. In fact, hundreds of federal, state, local, and even some campus law enforcement departments across the country have trained in some capacity with Israeli forces, now gunning down Palestinian protesters in droves. Some notable ones include the Chicago police, responsible for shooting the 17-year-old LaQuinn McDonald, Baltimore police, too, who were responsible for killing 25-year-old Freddie Gray, and the St. Louis Department, which was deployed in Ferguson when protests erupt after police killed 18-year-old Michael Brown, prompting Palestinians halfway across the world to begin tweeting advice for minimizing injuries when police deploy tear gas. U.S. police departments are sent to Israel, or sometimes Israeli forces come to the United States. under pretense of counterterrorism training. Apparently, that training includes learning the benefits of skunk water, a liquid deployed by Israel that's used to break up anti-occupation protests like the ones occurring right now. After protests in Ferguson, the St. Louis Police Department started stockpiling the stuff. And the now infamous NYPD Muslim surveillance program, the NYPD Intelligence Division chief responsible for that one got the idea from a similar program used to spy on Palestinians. It begs the question of whom the U.S. police consider terrorists. The former head of Shin Bet, Israel's Internal Security Service, Avi Ditcher, who has advocated dropping heavy bombs on civilians-occupied Gaza apartment buildings, believes there's an intimate connection between fighting criminals and fighting terrorists. Call these threats crematorist. But that isn't a one-sided transfer of tactics. That you're like to think of the war on terror and the war on drugs in the same category. Oh, I do too. The war on terror, the war on drugs, the war with ourselves, my friends. And when Israeli forces visit the United States, they also receive training from our police forces on the drug war tactics that have targeted black and brown communities. And just as well documented as the U.S. police killings of black Americans are Israeli military killings, torture and surveillance of Palestinians, adults, and children. Take 15-year-old Mohammed Tamani. He was shot during a protest and had to have his part of his skull removed. He was then taken by Israeli forces in the middle of the night and beaten into confessing that they didn't shoot him in the face, despite medical records accounts proving otherwise. Of course, this story has an ending that black Americans can also relate to. Those in uniform must rarely be held accountable by the government. While these connections may be new to some, the activists fighting both against the occupation of Palestine and for black lives are no strangers to how the struggles are linked. In 2015, black and Palestinian artists activists released a video statement of black Palestinian solidarity in the face of state-sanctioned violence, and the movement of the Black Lives platform includes demands for the U.S. to divest from the occupation of Palestine. The movement is taking root in many cities. In Atlanta, the group ATL is ready, as hashtag, released a list of demands following the police killings of Anton Sterling and Philando Castile. First calling for the termination of the Atlanta Police Department's involvement in an Israeli training program, and Jewish Voices for Peace launched Deadly Exchange, a campaign to end sharing of the worst practices of policing. And now these movements are starting to notch some victories. Durham, North Carolina recently became the first state to ban training of U.S. police by the Israeli military. The success of Durham training banning, spearheaded by the militarized from Durham to Palestine, is even more extraordinary when you consider the efforts of both powerful pro-Israel and police lobbies to crack down on black and Palestinian-led activist organizations. While the joint forces of the Israeli military and the U.S. police are terrifying, oftentimes deadly affront, a joint black and Palestinian force for good is emerging as quite as powerful itself. And as the death toll rises here in Gaza, it needed now more than ever. See, the whole thing is what they're doing is called destroying the domino effect. And I have to agree with them on this. I'm not saying Karl manga is bad or anything like that. It's really self-defense, form of Israeli self-defense, which is from the offshoot of Sambo. Nothing wrong with that at all. But the whole thing is we have Israeli military coming in here trying to train our guys. That's pretty damn dangerous, okay? And saying we're the bad guys, we're the terrorists, we're the wicked people, that doesn't work like that. Remember, the truth of the matter is the police are considered governmental delegates, not masters and masturbators. Don't get me wrong, I know there's a lot of good people, there's a lot of good folks I know who are in this entity are honorable folks, okay? But when you train these people to make them more aggressively, the whole thing is, instead of keeping the peace within the communities, it's going to arrest as many people as possible. Something like Dale Carson warned us about. And that book, Arrest Proof Yourself. I know I said it a few times, but my first-time listeners, you should really check that out. Arrest Proof Yourself by Dale Carson. And he's now, I believe, a retired criminal attorney up in Jacksonville, Florida. Real good story about that man. And so hopefully, because one thing is soon going to be these particular people. Okay, who's going to be next? And anyone else that or lighter skin. It's called, that's what I'm saying, it's about the domino effect. Because it hurts all of us in the long run, and we have to be vigilant against all forms of tyranny. So I pay homage to these individuals for standing up what's right. And I do recall talking about during the ban on demilitarized their police, which is fantastic, and it should be done even through Homeland Security as well, with their grants and riot gear and all that, which our federal tax dollars are actually going to this garbage. And this is why, and from the very beginning, when the Bush administration announced the Department of Homeland Security, I was never impressed. That's over 16 years ago, and I'm no expert, my fellow brothers and sisters. I just see things in the bigger picture, and everyone out there needs to do the same thing. We're never going to stop learning, okay? So, hey, I'm like the rabbi and the student as well. All right. Ooh, man, I'm just got a little bit jacked up here, but very inspired, too, and I do like to do this at night. It's very awesome out here. Good grief. So, I know I'm just been babbling here. All right, next one here is some good news. This came from the 10th Amendment Center. And it says here, now in effect, Michigan bans, quote, material support or resources, unquote, for warrantless federal surveillance. If I'm correct, it's by Mike Havery, right? That's his name. And it's from Lansing, Michigan today. A new law banning material support or resources for warrantless federal surveillance programs went into effect in Michigan. This is an essential step every state needs to take at a time when the federal government seems unlikely to ever end unconstitutional spying on its own. Representative Martin Howrelick, Republican from Troy, introduced House Bill 4430 last spring. The new law prohibits the state and its political subdivisions from assisting, participating with, or providing material support or resources to a federal agency to enable it to collect or to facilitate in the collection or use of a person's electronic data unless one of the 5 conditions apply. A, the person has given informed consent. B, the action is pursuant to a warrant that is based upon probable cause and particularly describes the person, place, or thing to be searched or be seized. C, the action is in accordance with a legally recognized exception to warrant requirements. D, the action will not infringe on any reasonable expectation of privacy the person may have. And E, the state or political subdivision of the state collected electronic data or metadata legally. The House approved the final version of HB 4430 at 108 to 1. Who the hell voted against it? Someone probably bends over for the state, for the federal government, I would say, right? Hey, folks in Michigan, look it up. If someone in there represented voted 1, ask them why you chose poorly, chump. The Senate passed the measure 37-0. With Governor Snyder's signature, the new law went into effect at midnight, June 17th. This reform safeguards the fundamental rights of all Michigan residents who are guaranteed protection of their property and privacy rights by the 4th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, Harrassing said. Michigan will not assist the federal government with any collection unless it is consistent with the Constitution. Michigan is the second state to take action to prohibit support for warrantless federal surveillance. In 2014, California took a smaller first step when Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill banning the state from participating in or providing material support or resources to any federal agency engaged in the illegal and unconstitutional collection of electronic data or metadata. The California law needs additional step for effectuation by defining specifically what actions constitutes illegal and unconstitutional. Passage of HB 4430, Michigan does go further by prohibiting specific state actions and gives the movement to stop unconstitutional federal surveillances more momentum. FISA reauthorization. Despite concerns about warrantless surveillance in the wake of Edward Snowden's revelation, Congress has done nothing to rein in NSA spying. In January, Congress reauthorized the FISA Section 702. Ain't that nice? So dumbed down, do-lang. Say, God bless Big Brother, do-lang. Spread your butt cheeks. Get it so hard. Okay, that's it. As Andrew Napolitano explained, the FISA created process permits a secret court in Washington to issue general warrants based on the government needs to gather intelligence about national security from foreigners among us. It pretends the standard is probable cause of foreign agency, but this has now morphine into the issuance of general warrants whether the government wants them. A typical FISA warrant authorized government surveillance to all landlines, mobile devices, and desktop computers in a given area. While the process was created to monitor foreign agents, it sweeps up reams of data belonging to Americans. Before approving a 6-year extension of Section 702, the House voted to kill an amendment that would have an overhaul the surveillance program and address some privacy concerns. How nice, huh? The provision of the amendment would have required agents to get warrants in most cases before hunting for and reading America's emails and other messages that get swept under the program. Just one day after Trump signed the extension into law, news came out with the infamous FISA memo. This memo was available to members of the House Intelligence Committee prior to the vote to reauthorize FISA, or FISA. You know, none of this information was made available to Congress at large. I'm sorry. That is so pathetic. It's like, hey, we'll do the Obama move, you know. We'll just vote on it and we'll wait it later. The Pelosi syndrome, right? All right, but I'm going to continue on here. Most telling every single Republican member of the House Intelligence Committee voted to reauthorize Section 702. And in a heartwarming show of bipartisanship, the 6 of the 9 representatives on the committee joined their colleagues. Yeah, there's another indication we can't count on Congress to limit its spy program. Yeah, because they spread their butt cheeks to the NSA, bought and paid for. If they see a bender, they'll go, how far, please? Practical effect. The Fed share and tap in vast amounts of information gathered at the state and local level through the program known as the Information Sharing Environment, or ISE. In other words, these partnerships facilitate federal efforts to track the movements of and obtain and store information on millions of Americans. This includes monitoring phone calls, emails, web browsing history, and text messages, all with no warrant, no probable cause, and without people even knowing that J. Edgar Hoover is jerking off in his grave and climaxing to the galore. According to its website, the ISE provides analysts, operators, and investigators with information needed to enhance national security. These analysts, operators, and investigators have mission needs to collaborate and share information with each other and with private sector partners and our foreign allies. In other words, ISE serves as a conduit for sharing of information gathered without a warrant, because the federal government relies heavily on partnerships and information sharing with the state local law enforcement agencies. Passage of HB 4430 potentially hinders warrantless surveillance in the state. For instance, if the feds want to engage in mass surveillance on specific groups or political organizations in Michigan, it will not have to proceed without state or assistance. This will likely prove problematic. Absolutely. State and local law enforcement agencies regularly provide surveillance data to the federal government through ISE and fusion centers. They collect and store information from cell site stimulators, aka stingrays, automated licensed plate readers, which is ALPRs, drones, facial recognition systems, and even smart or advanced power meters in homes. It's like THX 1138 in heat, right? Passage of HB 4430 sets the stage to end the sharing warrantless information with the federal government. It would also prohibit the state and local agencies from actively assisting in warrantless surveillance operations by including a prohibition on participation in the legal collection and use of electric data and metadata by the state. HB 4430 will also prohibit what NSA former police chief Director William Benny called the country's greatest threat since the Civil War. You mean the war against the Confederate States of America, bellboy? The bill bans the state from obtaining or making use of electronic data or metadata obtained by the NSA without a warrant. Reuters revealed the extent of such NSA data sharing with state and local law enforcement in an August 2013 article. According to documents obtained by the news agency, the NSA passes information to police through a formerly secret DEA unit known Special Operations Division, and the cases rarely involve national security issues. Almost all the information involves regular criminal investigations, not terror-related investigations. In other words, not only does the NSA collect and store this data, use it to build profiles, the agency encourages state and local enforcement to violate the Fourth Amendment by making use of this information in their day-to-day investigations. This is the most threatening situation to our constitutional republic since the Civil War, Benny said. Shoot. NSA facilities, the original definition of material support resources included providing tangible support such as money, goods, and materials, and also less concrete support, such as personnel and training. Section 805 of the Patriot Act expanded the definition to include expert advice or assistance. Yeah, not really. Particularly speaking, the legislation will almost certainly stop the NSA from ever setting up a new facility in Michigan. In 2006, the agency maxed out the Baltimore area power grid, creating the potential, as the Baltimore Sun reported, for a virtual sundown of the agency. Since then, the NSA aggressively expanded in states like Utah, Texas, Connecticut, Texas, Georgia, and elsewhere, generally focusing on locations that can provide cheap and plentiful resources like water and power. The whole thing is, shut them down with the water, turn it off. For instance, analysts estimate the NSA data storage in Bluffdale, Utah will use 46 million gallons of water every day to cool its massive computers. The city supplies this water based on the contract it entered into with the spy agency. The state could turn off the water by voiding the contract or refusing to renew it. No water would effectively mean no NSA facility. That's like south of Provo, if I'm correct. Bluffdale, right in the area, Provo area. What will stop the NSA from expanding in other states? Bills like 4430. By passing this legislation, Michigan becomes much less attractive for the NSA because it will not be able to access state or local water or power supplies. If enough states step up and pass the Fourth Amendment Protection Act, we can literally box them and shut them down. Legal basis. HB 4430 rests on a well-established legal principle known as the anti-commandeering doctrine. Simply put, the federal government cannot force states to implement or enforce any federal act or program. The anti-commandeering doctrine is based primarily on 5 Supreme Court cases dating back to 1842. Prince versus the U.S. serves as the cornerstone. We held in New York, the Congress cannot compel the states to enact or enforce a federal regulatory program. Today, we hold that Congress cannot circumvent that prohibition by conscripting the states' officers directly. The federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the states' officers or those of their particular subdivisions to administer or enforce federal regulatory program. It matters not whether policy making is involved, and no case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefit is necessary. Such commands are fundamentally incompatible with a constitutional system of dual sovereignty. And is absolutely correct. And it was fun because it was Sheriff Prince and Sheriff Mack versus the U.S., which that was in reference to the Brady Law. And folks out there should really look at that case. It's very interesting. And it was a pleasure to meet Sheriff Richard Mack on that on one of his tours about constitutional sheriffs. If you have a chance, check him out. He's very good and he's a very pleasant man to talk to. And he does everything to the T and has a great amount of merit. But I give the state of Michigan the thumbs up on him. I'm very pleased. They are fighting the real war on terror by protecting and defending the Bill of Rights culture for their state. And that's why every state in the union needs to implement that, including my state. If those idiots who are running for, most of these idiots who are running for governor need to heed that warning. If you support the NSA, get the hell out. That includes DeSantis, okay? Oh, he's pro-Second Amendment, boy, he's pro-NSA, pro-Big Brother. The guy's nothing more than anti-Bill of Rights. Even he's running for governor, he hates the Declaration of Rights by supporting surveillance programs, illegal, unconstitutional, because of the war on terror, which is a conflict with the people. So, Michigan. Good job. And Governor Snyder, thank you for standing up for what's right. Woo, man, I'm just like in a good mood here, man. So right now you got people on their boats, all that good stuff, and just doing their thing, and just doing mine. I'm just having a pleasant time doing this. I know I'm ranting, so sorry about that. And it's one here. It's a little bit pretty long, if I'm correct. It's not too bad. Yeah, this one here came out today, and this came out today as a great commentary. It's about rights. The Daily Bell. And it says here, if you think rights don't exist, you are contributing to the collapse of civilization. This is by Joe Jarvis. It came out today. And it says here, uttering the phrase contradicts your claim. Humans create language in order to constructively communicate. Language is real because people agree on the meaning of words. In the same vein, humans create the concept of rights to facilitate peaceful human interaction. Rights are real because people agree, sometimes without realizing it, on what constitutes a right. Even as someone utters, rights don't exist, they are exercising their most basic human rights. It's self-evident that they believe they have a right to live because they are alive. They believe they have the right to liberty. Aren't they saying what they wish to say? And haven't they taken the time to ponder their beliefs? They've done so in their best attempt to understand the word, and thus apply that understanding to pursuit of their own happiness. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Thomas Jefferson, Declaration of Independence. Of course, men in this context means humans, even though at the time women were prevented from exercising their rights to the same degree men could. And of course, at the time, the partnership between government and industry kept black slaves from exercising their freedom. There's a thing, you can look this up on Frederick Douglass. But Jefferson knew what he was writing. Despite his faults, he knew that he was setting stage for women, blacks, and all people to be free. It's all called steps. And whether God, nature, the universe, Gaia, Allah, whatever life force exists, humans are naturally born free. This means rights are free, the exercise of your will. When action is measurably harmful to another person, that is where rights stop. This framework ensures no conflict or contradiction between the ultimate exercise of your free will and the ultimate protection against those who would interfere with your freedom. This recognizes the equality of everyone. When Thomas Jefferson wrote among these rights, he was laying a foundation: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, encapsulate every other right. Another saying that is the right to self-ownership. You own yourself. This is why rights cannot extend past the point of harming others. Once your actions hurt someone, you have violated their right to self-ownership. You are no longer dealing only with your life, your liberty, and your happiness. You have affected another person's right. You have taken their freedom to choose what happens to their most precious property, their own being. Thomas Jefferson borrowed this concept from John Locke, who wrote that the basic rights are life, liberty, and property. And I did a show on John Locke one time. Locke also wrote elsewhere extensively about his important it is for a human to have the unrestricted ability to pursue happiness. The necessity of pursuing happiness is the foundation of liberty, as therefore the highest perfection of intellectual nature lies in the careful and constant pursuit of true and solid happiness. Still, the care of ourselves that we mistake not imaginary for real happiness is a necessary foundation of our liberty. I suspect Jefferson's marketing instincts made him change the wording. You always want to appeal to emotion if you want people on your side. Happiness sounds less greedy than property. And yet, not only are property and the pursuit of happiness exact the same thing, Locke and Jefferson were 4 times redundant. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and property are all the exact same thing. And as we'll see, these concepts have other synonyms as well. You may do this You may do with this as you choose, and no one else is justified in interfering with your life. And of course, that means you are not justified in commandeering another's life without his or her consent. Consent. That's another synonym. Life, liberty, property, and self-ownership, the pursuit of happiness, and consent in all matters concerning you. These are among your many rights. And when someone violates your consent, when they stop you from pursuing what is best for you, when they act as if they own you, when they take or destroy the fruits of your labor, when they stop you from exercising any and all of your many freedoms, or when they take your life, they are wrong. That doesn't mean they will be punished. It's simply the best philosophical framework to facilitate peaceful human interaction. It is the best because it assumes that it is a very self-evident truth that all people are equal. It is a great litmus test to see if someone is a dangerous person. What kind of person would disagree with his life and let live philosophy? Your life is your life, and when the two lives clash, whoever caused the conflict is wrong. This is self-evident. The fact that it's sometimes difficult to discover or understand who started the conflict does not diminish this truth. It's that simple, self-explanatory, right? Liberty. What does a man have to stop from taking an action? The only right to stop you from taking an action which harms him. You have the same right to stop him from hurting you. But when this action does not affect you, you have no rightful say in the actions he takes, and he has no rightful say in the actions you take. Isn't this a self-evident framework for how humans should interact? Doesn't it place everyone on equal philosophical grounds? So humans create systems to enforce this framework. The rule of law or common law frameworks helps to enforce the system of individual rights. Common law proceedings attempt to identify exactly when and where someone crossed the line from exercising their own rights to violate another's rights and punishing the perpetrator accordingly. This creates a society based on natural law by resolving conflicts without further violence. I like that too. The pursuit of happiness. Why would you ever try to stop a person from pursuing their own happiness? A civilized person would not. A civilized person recognizes that every individual is their most precious possession, and every person must have the liberty necessary for them to even attempt to make their life a happy one. The pursuit of happiness is the freedom to forge your own path, to take actions you feel are the best for you. It's self-determination, self-ownership. And of course, there's absolutely no guarantee of actual happiness. It's rather that the philosophy that it is wrong for anyone to stop you from taking actions which you deem to be most likely lead to a fulfilling life. If your versions of happiness includes robbing of others of their life, liberty, and property, you are wrong for doing so. Again, the limit of all rights is when they interfere with the free exercise of other rights. This reciprocity creates equality. So if you're gonna rob somebody, don't tell me you don't understand the pressure. I mean, I gotta. It's so hard to get all the scraps. If you gotta violate others because you think you're special, it doesn't work that way. Property. You believe in the right of property. I know this because you are alive, and to be alive means you eat food and drink water. When you eat and drink, you monopolize those resources, claim them as your own, your property. By combining your labor with a natural resource, it takes something your property. It becomes an extension of you because you own yourself. You own everything your labor creates. Of course, advanced economies might make the interactions more intricate. We deal with transfer of property and substitute payments for labor. We respect for individual rights, ensure society remains civil no matter how advanced and interconnected the economy becomes. You cannot force others to labor for you, because that robs them of their property, their liberty, their ability to pursue happiness, and their freedom to control their own life. Taking the products of someone's labor by force is the same as forcing labor from someone. You stole what they created. You failed their consent and thus violated their own to own themselves, to choose where their energies goes, to determine where their energies go. These are all different ways of saying the same thing. Synonyms. If you don't understand the meaning of a word, the word does not cease to exist. If some people incorrectly use the word, it does not mean belief in language should be abandoned. If people use a language as a tool to confuse rather than communicate, it does not change the underlying purpose of language. In fact, the perversion of language and the desecration of rights have much in common. How can we communicate effectively when the true meaning of words has been so muddled? And how can we interact peacefully when the concept of rights is so misunderstood? It all starts with life, the most self-evident of rights. Since your life is your own, you are at liberty to do as you choose with it. You are free to use your liberty and to do with your life whatever it is you believe will bring you the most happiness and fulfillment in this world. Whatever work you do in those interests is yours to keep in the form of property. These concepts are all inextricably linked and all refer to the same framework which has built civilization. Women are created equal and have the right to do anything and everything they wish in the course of determining their own destiny. If you don't play by the rules of the corrupt politicians, manipulative media, and brainwashed peers. That is absolutely correct. So all you folks out there are free to do what seems fit to your needs. And this is why, my friends, I always look at the world in a bigger place. We are all freedom-loving, sovereign-thinking individuals. We all have natural-born rights. And I'll be very frank, and I teach that to others as well, all in good faith, because they want you to look at life more half-assed. That's the word I use. Very half-assed. And for myself, I see things a lot more complex. So I always enjoy talking about this to everybody, regardless where you come from, what you look like. Because one thing for sure, this is why people like these Charlton site groups like the Southern Empire Law Center, Indian Information League, Ku Klux Klan, New Black Panther Party, etc. They're nothing more than subversified entities which they believe division and rule. That keeps them going. That makes them money. Folks like that are nothing more than opportunistic vampires, parasites. That's how I look at these individuals. And I always say that in good faith. So, and that is really it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you may send something interesting you may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Minds.com, FutureNet.club. Right now, my Patreon account has some issues. I'm going to try to get that fixed as soon as possible. But if you do have the chance, patreon.com/lookalike3 You hit me at Gab, G-A-B, yours.org, oneway.org, and buddylist.co. In addition, you can email me at lookalike3 @gmail.com. or to encrypted ones, especially with the Pro 10 Mail account, you can get me at LokiLuck numbers 03 at protonmail.com. All right, my friends, that's all for now. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance healthy for the soul can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.